From New York, it's That Kevin Show.
See, I knew it.
Come on, Kev. What's a few classified documents between friends?
I told you all the time. I knew it. I knew he had some too.
Here he is, That Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to Times Square. Kevin McCullough, That Kevin Show. So glad to have you with us on 300 radio stations and 2 great television networks, the Biz TV network, and of course, the Salem News Channel, my home network. This week was the week of politics. I don't know how it gets any bigger or more important. You start off with an assassination attempt last weekend. You go through what has to be, by every measure of every person I've spoken with, an historic convention. And you end with the week in possibly opposite-ended spectrums from where the parties were just a few weeks ago, with one in complete disarray, and it seems the other is completely united. I am excited to have my next conversation with someone who is no stranger to this world of politics. In fact, he has been in the throes of a presidential race on more than one occasion, and he's knocked elbows against Donald Trump a time or two, but he has since become a huge supporter, and his daughter not only has followed in his steps, becoming governor of the state that they both stem from, but she also had the privilege to serve President 45 in a capacity that was very public and very hard. And yes, she was a highlight of this last week. I don't know if it gets any bigger than this, but welcome to That Kevin Show. And please welcome Governor Mike Huckabee. Hello, Governor.
Kevin, it was everything you just described and more. You know, some big stories that kind of got buried. The Florida case against Trump and the Mar-a-Lago papers, totally thrown out. Nobody's paying attention to that. It's a big story, but who can put that up against what happened with the assassination attempt, Joe Biden's complete collapse with his own party, and almost a pitch-perfect Republican convention, maybe the best I've seen in my lifetime. It was just flawless. I'm not sure who to give credit to for the planning and the execution of the program, but they really did a masterful job of making the themes of the convention communicate very clearly and bring in a wide array of people. Yeah. Kevin, let me just quickly say, one of the people that, there were several that really surprised me, a couple, both on the same night, Amber Rose. And when I heard she was going to speak, I'm thinking to myself, really? I'm not sure about that one. Yet she wowed me with such a sincere, heartfelt message of support for Donald Trump. And then the president of the Teamsters Union.
Well, Governor, she went further than that. She apologized for having drunk the Kool-Aid that she had been peddled for all those years. And I thought that on opening night was stunning.
I did too. I just thought it was masterful. And the union president from the Teamsters, historic, and that no Teamsters president, no union president had ever addressed a Republican convention. And he was honest. He didn't try to pretend, hey, I'm now a flag-waving Republican. He just said that Donald Trump is someone who gets union members' support because he cares about us and the Democrats don't. That was a bold thing for him to do. Throughout the convention, though, it was a great balance of people from all over the political spectrum. Again, I just say it was pitch perfect.
Yeah, no, I've actually spoken to several center-left Democrats, and I'm not worried about hard-left Democrats because they don't have very many numbers. But the center-left Democrats are the ones that are really up for play right now in terms of winning their hearts. And almost to a person, they said that there were moments in which they felt moved to almost cry or to think differently about some of the things that they had been pondering relating to this year's election. And I think if you're doing that on, the biggest swath of your opponent's vulnerable territory, you really are in good shape. And it looks like, Governor, the polls are starting to reflect not just the maybe sympathy from the assassination attempt, but also some of the impact from this week, as now Emerson is reporting all 7 major swing states with definitive leads for Trump, and CBS, your real conservative, super right-wing, hardcore outlet on the far right, CBS, they now have Trump leading outside the margin of error nationally, head to head. It's going to be interesting to see where all this goes. I want to stay on the convention for just a little bit because I felt like there were 2 kind of tracks going down the trail here during the week. One was obviously the policy and the everyday people segments with the border violence victims, with the Gold Star families, with the parents of the hostages that are still being held. They made the case, but they made it in prime time. And I know who to thank. Kimberly Guilfoyle was the platform head. She put it all together and kind of built the crescendo as it went by. But they put those stories that I feel like, despite Kid Rock and Hulk Hogan and whoever else they had, those were fun. And that added to the celebration of the moment. And I think it's okay for Republicans to have fun every now and then and to act like we have fun. But I think the interesting thing about the everyday people segments being in prime time is that those connected emotionally with the audiences that were watching. You could feel that the nation was being presented with sometimes facts that they hadn't been presented anywhere else. And you could feel the sobriety of those moments.
You certainly could. There were a couple that stand out for me. Well, many of them, I guess, do if I start thinking about it. But maybe I was paying more attention Tuesday night because it was the night Sarah spoke. But the African-American lady from New York, who spoke with such passion about crime and safety, it was absolutely powerful. I mean, I'm thinking if she'd have passed a plate, they would have had enough money to win every election in America, because it was just such an extraordinary speech. But the one that got to, I think, every American was the woman, Mrs. Funler, who talked about her son being poisoned by fentanyl. And when they would pan to the crowd, there was not a single person, especially the women, that were not weeping, because every mother in that arena were connecting with her in a way that was visceral. This was not just, the head nod of, yeah. This was a woman who was connecting to people with heart. And I'm thinking, for all those concerns that the Republicans can't reach suburban women and they don't have a message for women, I'm thinking, yeah, they do. And that was it. And it was powerful.
Well, and to see how almost on the same night you had Nikki Haley, Kai Trump, and your daughter. I guess those were on a couple of different nights, but you had them all painting this picture of a man behind the scenes that very different audiences appeal. Nikki Haley's supporters are not Sarah Huckabee Sanders supporters necessarily, but from their each individual perspective, they were able to show a side to Trump that has been largely obfuscated by the press that covers him. And the theme that just kept coming out over and over again was the kindness that this man has in his heart. And I think even in his own speech, which, let's face it, had the attempt on his life not happened the Saturday before, that Friday night closing speech might have been very different. But you sensed a brokenness and a humility and a humbleness that I think appeals across the spectrum.
I think coming within half an inch of being murdered does a lot to cause a person to enter life with a different level of sobriety. And I don't mean sobriety as opposed to drunkenness. I'm talking about sobriety in terms of counting every day as a gift from God and recognizing not only how precious life is, but realizing God spared me.
He's Governor Mike Huckabee. I'm Kevin McCullough. It's the closing out of the week of the Republican National Convention. We're glad to have you with us.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough.